Warm welcome. It is for sure exciting times being in the IT domain and IT industry right now. I mean, digitalization and digital maturity have taken huge leap in a very short time period. And the customer expectation and our own expectations actually to experience self-service and digital meetings has never been higher. And at the same time, we see that crime goes cyber and that we need to adopt and manage risk in other ways. So what could be better than to talk about the strategies behind resilient transformation and IT's new role? My name is Alexandra Fürst, and I am the CIO at Dustin. Dustin is a broad IT partner active in the Pan-Nordic region and in the Netherlands. And we are also the largest e-commerce player in the Nordics, focusing on IT services, hardware and software. And primarily we do this to corporations. And as a CIO, I must say that I am responsible, of course, for an IT, but also for the digitalization journey at Dustin. And probably this is the same responsibility that you have listening into this. And as a CIO, I for sure has felt the pressure and the needs from business to deliver digital initiatives much faster than ever before. At Dustin, we work close together with our insight partner, Radar. And with us today to discuss thoughts and to share insights, we have our expert and senior advisor from Radar, Freddy Rinderud. Freddy, warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, and great to be here again at the Computer World Summit.
And I know that last year, you and my colleague Lars, you had a chat about potential roles that IT could take on in the future. And I thought we start with elaborate a bit about what has happened since, and also what roles do you see that IT takes now? And I often reflect myself on this, of course, and I'm feeling that IT is becoming business and business is becoming IT in a much, I would say, greater sense than before. And also I'm thinking how IT as a competence domain is really being spread out and a natural part of the processes in another way than we have seen. And at the same time, I see many Nordic organizations struggling with this position.
Yeah, I would say that most Nordic IT organizations still struggle to move from their old role being their own organizational unit producing IT, a producing unit, to be more of an integrator of technology into the business processes. And this is no surprise. There's still a logical gap between IT and business. IT use their own frameworks, they still have their own language, they have mostly technology-focused competencies and so on. So, and also this also comes back to the C-level measurement of the IT organization. Still, most Nordic IT organizations are measured on traditional KPIs like budget and uptime and operational stability and so on, instead of more forward-leaning KPIs involving to develop the business and digital transformation of the business. So there's still a struggle here, and they are somewhat stuck in between two different roles.
And in the future, I truly believe that business and IT will be merged together in another way than we see today. But there are also some competence domains that I think is a need for, or increased need for, having centralized. And I'm thinking architecture or security, for example. And when we look about the other traditional IT competences, that is something that we will see totally involved in the business processes in another way than today.
If we look at completely different domains, but expertise domains that are a bit more mature than IT's so far, they have a step by step being more and more of a knowledge domain in the business process, as you say. And I mean, we already have seen this starting to happen for some 10-15 years, with more and more of the IT investments being funded and controlled by the line of business. Today, some 25% of the external IT spend in a Nordic organization on average is funded and controlled by the line of business. So this is something that we've seen happening for a long time, and with increased digitalization and the increased pace of the digitalization, this will happen even quicker.
And sometimes I also reflect upon being as a CIO that IT is stuck in between. And with that, I mean I'm stuck in between being really cost efficient and drive that part of IT, but also be an innovator and drive the digital business. And then, of course, manage risk and security and compliance in a good manner that everyone expects us to. And then sometimes when I think of this very complex picture, I also realize that this is exactly why I like it in this domain, why this is so interesting part. And I looked up on a report from Radar, and then I saw that you have found that Nordic companies have 3 priorities. And I thought they were so relevant also from my situation right now.
Yeah, they actually very clearly reflect the situation right now and the complexity with both being measured on budget and being expected to be cost efficient, but at the same time drive innovation. So the 3 top priorities among Nordic organizations are, to no surprise, I would say, cost efficiency, digital transformation, including automation of business processes by using digital tools, and security and risk. And security and risk raised a lot the last few years. When we become more and more digital, we also become more and more vulnerable, and more, to a much larger extent, we are depending on our digital assets. But let's dig into these 3 areas, starting with the cost efficiency. Cost efficiency will always be a priority. If it will be a top priority or the second one, the runner-up, but of course it's always a question about budget and cost efficiency. And right now this is particularly interesting because we have a industry development right now where more and more of IT becomes standardized or commoditized. More and more of IT is possible to produce in a large scale to decreased cost or less cost. I'm talking, of course, about cloud or outsourcing and so on. And then you have the small part of our IT delivery or IT production that is unique, that creates this competitive advantage. But most of it is possible to produce in a larger scale. The entire industry is maturing that way. And we start using the manufacturing principles when producing IT. But, and this is very important, I think, we have to understand that choosing delivery models and choosing delivery models and using different delivery models in our hybrid IT delivery is not only a question about cost, but also a question about the different strategic advantages different delivery models have. For example, the power of the innovation in the cloud, for example, that you have to utilize to stay competitive and so on. And all of this puts pressure on our existing sourcing models or sourcing processes and our vendor management work today. We have to evolve and renew perhaps our sourcing models to also take into account the strategic dimensions of different delivery models, the strategic dimensions of having local or global supply chains and so on. So this is something happening right now.
And I think, as you point out, cost efficiencies will be on the table always more or less. And I was quite surprised because I read also that still I think of an IT budget, it's still so many companies using 80% of the IT budget to keep the lights on.
That's the average among Nordic companies. 80% is used for operations.
So there are huge potential, and we need to continue to have this as a priority, and also to be able to fund the next strategic priority area that we see, which is the digital transformation. And if digital transformation is not a priority for you today, then make sure it becomes one. Because by embracing this, I mean, you have a golden opportunity working in IT to be in the front seat or in the driver's seat, and to really get things going. But it doesn't come for free, right? to get into the driver's seat. So in general, I think that the business knowledge, and with that I mean understanding the business processes or business models, where do we earn money, and the customer problems and challenges that we are there to solve, it's too low. So we need to continue to raise the bar and learn more. And I'm an easy person, so I think, how can we start this? And it could just be, to get hold of your sales department and a sales rep and join them for a meeting. And then also both get the customer meeting, but also to understand the process behind what happens then after an order is done. Or it could be listening into a customer service agent and just hear the customer calling. What are they calling about? And also follow the process there. That is what I reckon as business knowledge. And when you have that knowledge, when you have that experience, I mean, the dialogue is so much easier. And also coming into another domain that's very close to my heart, which is the competence and the learning. When you have the tech interest and you have the business understanding, there you have the magic. So continue to be curious, to continue to raise the competence in those domains, then digital transformation can happen.
Definitely, I agree. We have a situation today where the C-level or the core business don't have they lack the understanding to utilize on digitalization or the possibilities they have. They can't fully see it because they don't have most of the time the interest in the technology, and we have an IT department focusing on operations instead of taking the core business forward.
And I think that the quote we see here on the slide also, I mean, almost 50% of the Nordic companies still does not have IT decision makers as a part of the management team. I think as you touch upon it, it's very two-folded. On the one hand, perhaps companies still doesn't see the relevance of it, and that's a problem in itself in this digital era.
Possibilities.
Exactly. And the other hand, it's actually about the competence within the IT department, as you say. I mean, we need to really be interested, for sure be interested in the business and what tech can create. What value can we create from tech?
And this is really interesting. We at Radar, we have studied 57 Nordic cases of digital transformation that has actually been implemented and successful. And it's really interesting to see when we look at these examples that not a single one of these 57 cases, the IT department has been the owner of the project, but the business. So the business drives digitalization or digital transformation themselves. And in almost all of the cases, it hasn't been a typical IT vendor or IT supplier that was the main vendor in the project. So the business funds, controls, and owns the digital transformation projects themselves. And it's really interesting. I could talk for hours about these 57 examples, but one of them, for example, is a shipping company, a global shipping company that use IoT and 4G and 5G to monitor containers all over the world, to monitor cooling fans in the containers to allow predictive maintenance and so on. And they have really reduced waste on the goods they're transporting. So there are a lot of interesting examples, but IT is not involved in it.
No, so interesting. And as such an opportunity, and I'm thinking also with the digital transformation and the example you give, using IoT and new technologies, there are also another exposure to risk, right? The vulnerability exposure is broader in a sense, and new perhaps to some. And I think that's interesting, given the potential that's there, but also then what do we need to do?
As you say, the vulnerability increases, but also our business process depend more and more on our digital assets and our information. So when it comes to resilience or business continuity perspective, there's also a greater risk, not only a bigger vulnerability, but also a greater risk. And this is something we have to start handling in a different way than we have typically done within IT before. Because Our idea within IT is either you're secure or you're not secure, and we focus a lot on technology. It's penetration testing and so on. It's a lot of focus on the technology, but to be able to keep up with the digital transformation and to actually utilize on the digital transformation, we have to allow risk to a much larger extent than we do today. But to do that, we need to perceive risk and digital business risk in a different way, going from IT security perspective to digital business risk and start allowing digital business risk.
And I think we are already actually on the third area, which is so interesting and so closely related to as you say, the digital opportunities, the
One
business
come with
opportunities.
another,
Yeah, all three of them actually. But I think this is the area where we could improve more. Could you elaborate a bit about the security and risk perspective?
As I said, we have to go from the perspective of technology and IT security to see and understand and allow business risk, digital business risk, as one out of many different risks any company is exposed for. And we have to get rid of the old IT models for handling, managing risk, and start using the established models that our core business use for financial risk or other risks.
And I think that is so interesting, talking also about the business knowledge and business understanding. I mean, here is a small step, but a large impact, a large opportunity to actually align on the business risk. Because IT risk are business risk, IT is business, business is IT, right? So there is, I think, a golden opportunity to really use other models than we are used to when assessing risk.
Yeah, and then start allowing risk. We have to, our core businesses have to be able to take risk to keep up with the transformation. And we have to be able to handle that risk. Today, we undertake more and more of digital business risk, mostly unconsciously, because we don't have the models or the processes to handle risk and take smart decisions. So there's a lot of improvement to do here. Start talking the same language, using the same models as the core business do.
And also we've seen in the pandemic how things have changed. I normally say that the pandemic is it's awful in many senses, and it's also interesting in so many senses because we have accelerated the digital transformation and the maturity as we talked about, but also how we look upon risk and the exposure.
It became very clear last year how the supply chains within IT was exposed to the situation, the global situation, both the pandemic, as you mentioned, but also the geopolitical situation we have now with war between economies or war between economic models and a lot of policy involvement in the macroeconomics, but also, as you said, the pandemic. And we see that Nordic organizations tend to favor local suppliers to a higher extent than before, because they have seen what might happen, or they at least see the risk of what could happen with the global IT supply chains. So that's talking about business resilience again, being more and more dependent on IT and digital assets. That, of course, have an impact on the supply chains as well. And that's something we also have to handle with the new models, with understanding business risk rather than IT security.
No, it's so many aspects that the pandemic has brought to us.
We could go on for a while.
We will not. We will actually start to summarize. I mean, what do we want to send with you? I mean, the key takeaways for IT to take on its new role. What would be 3 key takeaways for a successful transformation? And to start with, secure the competence and get the mandate. I think that is the most important ones moving on. I mean, get and earn the seat at the table. Get involved in business matters. Do that now. And also involving cross-functional teams, set out the goal. Make sure also that you focus on the value. The value is the key. Tech and cost, that's there, but that comes second.
The second one would be to improve or even renew your sourcing strategy. you need a sourcing model that not only take the technology perspective or cost perspective, but also the strategic perspective. The old Kralnik matrix needs to be updated. You must ensure that you have the right delivery model and the right vendor to the right mission.
And thirdly, when managing and assessing risk, take the opportunity to change models and use the business risk models. It's an easy thing to do, but with large impact, and this will give you a united perspective on the risk mitigation and what the risk is all about. So with this, we want to thank you to you. Many thanks for listening in. And me and Freddie and all our colleagues would be happy to continue the dialogue. Please reach out for any further discussions. And you will also receive a report from us after Computer World Digital Summit is over in your mailboxes. Make sure to deep dive in it. Many interesting insights is in there. And as final words, me and Freddie wants to share with you that the most important action is actually the one that you do, the one that is happening. So start small and start now. Many thanks.
Thank you.